Hi there, Laura here from Get Organized HQ, and I am on a mission to figure out how to keep my strawberries fresh for a really long time. I've tried a lot of things. One of the problems is if you try, like some special produce thing, but like maybe you started with strawberries that were less fresh, which really keeps it, fresher longer. I don't know. So we're gonna discover that. And the other thing that's really important to me is that I would like to store my strawberries ready to eat. So I've done a ton of research on this topic, like I've Googled, I've consulted experts, and really and truly, if you keep your strawberries whole, you can wash them and dry them thoroughly, but whole, including like the green part, the stem on, they will last longer. That's great. However, for me and my family, I want them cut up and ready to eat because I want us to eat them. If they're in a jar and not cut up, then I am more likely to easily reach for a less healthy snack that I can just grab versus if they're cut up. So we are really going to test this, and we are going to figure out what actually works. And I also want to test like this thing. Does it work at all? Is it any better? Or this Tupperware thing that's specifically designed for produce, does it actually keep it fresh longer? We are going to find out. So I am going to do an experiment. I honestly, at this point in time, we haven't started, so I have no idea like what's going to win. I am just as in the dark as you are. So what I'm going to do is I am going to put the strawberries, some of them whole and some of them cut up, not in the same container, but in different containers, in all these different containers. And that'll be the beginning of the experiment. And then every morning I'm going to go in and I'll film it for you, take a picture so you can see which ones go bad the fastest and which ones last the longest. So we're actually going to answer that question. Everything will be coming from this one container of strawberries. So it was purchased yesterday at Sam's Club, in case that matters. I do not believe it's organic, it's just regular strawberries. I don't think that actually matters for how long they stay good. But just in case you were wondering, all the strawberries are bought at the same time, coming from the same place, so there should not be any difference in the strawberries. This looks like a reasonable thing, like exactly what I would buy. I would say these look like pretty good strawberries even to start with. And then here's what we're gonna test. We are going to be testing leaving them in this container. So we'll leave a few in here and see what happens. This is kind of like the control. What happens if you just leave them in the container? We'll do one unwashed and one washed. Most of them we're going to wash just so we don't have like 82 different scenarios that I have to monitor. I'm not actually a lab, so that'd be a bit much. I know I want them washed, and according to my research, as long as they dry, that shouldn't affect how long they last. So then I wanted to test these Debbie Meyer green bags that I've seen on the internet that claims that they let your produce last longer, and see if these actually work. So we're going to be testing these. In addition to that, this is Tupperware. They have a line, all different sizes, of a produce keeper, and they say that this will keep your produce fresh longer. It's really cool. They have like you can change how vented or sealed it is, and it has a little guide right here. So we'll be testing those. In addition to that, this is another thing I got. I think I got this at Costco or Sam's Club, but you can get these online. It has like a part down here where it lets the moisture drain. So in theory, these should help. So we will be testing those. I love how many sizes and how nested they are. So we'll be testing these. In addition to that, we'll be testing putting them in like mason jars, because one of the experts that I follow on how to keep your produce fresh longer, Amy Cross from the Cross Legacy, she's spoken at Get Organized HQ virtual before, even about this topic. She claims that keeping them in a jar like this will keep them fresh the longest. So I would really like to test that theory. So that's what we're going to test out. Now, if you all have another produce keeper that you think works really well, leave it in the comments. We may do a follow-up test. These are just the ones that were available to me that I found that I wanted to see if they really actually truly do help keep produce fresh longer. Now, when we wash these, we are going to be washing them like Amy Cross suggests, which is very specific. She says a 1/4 cup of vinegar mixed with a specific amount of water. She also says to soak them for 2 minutes exactly. She says do not go longer. They will start to ferment. So you soak them for exactly 2 minutes. We will do exactly that. And then you rinse them off, and then you lay them on a towel to dry. It is very important that they be completely dry. So we are obviously going to do that. I will let them sit on the towel for hours and ensure that they are dry. I do realize that this process is a little bit much to do on a regular basis, but I want to see, is it possible? Like if I wash them and cut them, Am I going to get an extra day? Am I going to be able to get an extra week? And it may or may not be worth it, but we got to just see if it works before we decide if it is truly worth the effort for us. So we'll be washing them in that manner. And then once they are dry, I will be leaving some of them whole and cutting some of them up and placing them in these containers. So here I am using the method that I learned from Amy Cross for how to preserve and wash my berries. So she said what she does is she does 10 cups of water, and she does it for the 2-pound clamshell, which is what I have. So I've got 10 cups of cool water in here. Then she says she uses distilled white vinegar, 5%. That is the standard vinegar that they sell, at my store. It's nothing special as far as I know. And so she says she puts in a 1/4 cup. So I'm going to do exactly a 1/4 cup in here. This is what I use to measure the water. All right, and then we put that in to the water. And I feel like I should mix it up, so I'm going to get a spoon and give it a little stir before I add the berries. All right, so I'm just going to mix up that, make sure it's mixed. I don't know if you really have to do that, but I felt like I should. All right, now we're going to put the berries in, and this is really important. She says to ensure that you do it for 2 minutes, no longer, or it will actually not keep them fresh. And they will start to ferment. So as soon as I put them in, I'm going to say go, and we have a timer over there that we are going to leave them in for exactly 2 minutes. All right, let's go on the timer. All right, so I'm just making sure they're submerged. Look nice and clean. I'm anxious to see how dirty this makes the water. Now, as soon as these are done with the 2 minutes, I'm going to immediately put them in the colander and rinse them with regular water, and then we're going to dry them on a towel. Okay, the time is up, so we are now pouring it into a colander, and we're just going to rinse them with water. So this is just regular tap water that I'm rinsing them with, making sure I get all that vinegar solution off of them, I think. Okay, so I now have them rinsed with water, and then we need to dry them. The drying is super duper important. I know from multiple sources, the moisture is what causes, contributes to them spoiling. So we need to lay them out and make sure that they are completely dry. And this should take probably a couple hours. I'll update on how long it actually takes and how long I leave them there. I will probably just, because, I don't have to be doing anything while they're drying, I'll probably leave them even some extra just for some good margin. Also, Amy warns that they will stain your towel. So, if you have a towel you don't want to stain, you probably wouldn't want to use that one. These are just my everyday towels. I totally could care less if they get stained. Amy also mentioned that she's careful to take out any strawberries that are starting to ripen too much or looking bad. Now, I don't know exactly how to define that. I will say that some of these are a little bit soft. I suppose if I were really picky, I could take them out. However, these are the best strawberries I could get, and I just bought them yesterday. So we're not, where I live in the middle of Indiana, it's unlikely that I'm going to regularly get strawberries that are any better than this. So I want to see how it works with the strawberries that I can actually get. Now, if I had one or two that was just obviously ridiculous, I would remove them. But I want this, when I do this, it's going to be with the strawberries that I can acquire. And we're not going to ditch half of them because they're not perfect. Now, again, if you live, if you live somewhere else and you have access to better strawberries and you only get a kind of a not so great one on occasion, you may want to remove those. But I don't want to have to remove half of them and eat those right away, because also my daughter and I are the only ones who eat them. So we probably wouldn't, sometimes we would eat half of them right away, sometimes we wouldn't. Oh man, these smell so good. I kind of want to eat one. But I need enough for the experiment, so I will resist eating them. All right, so we are just going to I'm actually going to just kind of pat dry them, just a teensy bit. I'm not putting much pressure, just for fun. And then we're just going to let them air dry until they are 100% dry. Notice I left space so that they can get dry. I am back, and it is over 6 hours since I did the last. You can probably tell it's dark. And so I've let these dry for 6 hours. Now, I will say they're just, they're moist, so they're not completely dry. Like, they're not going to feel dry, but I think this is about as dry as they're going to get. So I am ready to proceed with putting them in the containers, and then we'll be checking on them daily. It is a cool day, so it's been about 67 degrees in the house. I just thought I'd mention that. And it's relatively, it's winter here, so the humidity is relatively low, in case you're curious about that. All right, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to start on our different methods of testing. So I'm going to start with, this is the Tupperware's Produce Keeper. They come in all different sizes. If I like this one, I can get more that would fit things. The other thing I love about this is it lets you adjust the humidity, like how much air gets in with this thing, and printed directly on this thing, so you don't need anything, is pictures to indicate where you need to put it for that particular fruit or vegetable, and a QR code where you can get more information. So here's a picture of strawberries, and it's showing full. So I need to move this to the setting of full, which I think means closed. Letting no humidity in, I'm not sure, but I'm going to make sure that both of these are set properly. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to put in 2 strawberries that are not cut up. So we're going to see how those do in this one. And then here in this one, we are going to cut a couple strawberries how I'd want them to be cut. And we are going to see how that does. So this is probably how I would cut them if I were cutting them up to eat. And we're going to see, how much of a difference that makes. All right, so I've done that. I don't really need to label these because it should be pretty obvious whether they're cut or not and what, they are in. Make sure I got that on the right setting. Okay, great. So those 2 are done. All right, then we're going to move on to the mason jars. And in the mason jars, Amy says that she puts in a paper towel in the bottom. It's important to keep out condensation. So I'm going to put a paper towel in the bottom of each of these to catch any possible condensation. I can't talk. Oh, it's hard to get it in the bottom. Okay, because of how the mouth of this jar is. Let's see if I can get it done. Oh, yay. Okay, so we're just going to put in a couple of these berries. All right, there's that one. Then on this one, I'm going to cut the berries and see how the cut berries do. All right, and then we'll put these into the jar. Whoops, I dropped part of one. I'll get that later. Okay, got those done. Perfect. Now we're going to try these Debbie Meyer green bags. It says fruits and vegetables stay fresh longer, extends it. They have a picture of bananas, but they have all different ones. So yeah, I just saw these on Amazon and thought, hey, we're doing this experiment. Let's give them a try. Now let me see what the instructions say. It says that they release ethylene gases during natural ripening. Exposure of the produce to these gases accelerates aging. These green bags are made with a natural mineral and helps create a beneficial storage environment that helps extend the life of the fruit or vegetables. Store in the refrigerator or on the countertop wherever you'd normally store. Each bag is reusable several times. Simply rinse, allow to dry, and reuse. So that's pretty nice. So these, considering that you could reuse these, they're pretty affordable. But it should be dry before placing in bag. Simply place it in bags, store in the refrigerator or on the countertop. It just says to have it dry. Wash, rinse as usual before use. If moisture builds in the bag, wipe it out with a paper towel and keep contents as dry as possible. They also say to use 1 bag for each type of produce, so I wouldn't put strawberries and blueberries in the same bag. Fold over the top of the bag. Do not use twist ties as they make holes. All right, so what we're going to do is we're going to take a couple of these right here, and we are just going to fold it over like this, I guess. And then I will do one for the cut up berries. I must say, I cannot wait to see. I have no idea. Hopefully we will see a difference in some methods, but I'm very anxious to see kind of what turns out from this. Okay, and then just fold it down. All right, and then we're We're gonna use these are, I cannot remember if it's Costco or Sam's Club. I'll put a link to something similar. What's also interesting about these is, first of all, you can take this bottom part off. So I really like that for washing, and I can see how it's going to make any moisture kind of not be in contact with your fruit. So to me, that makes a lot of sense. They also have a little thing saying that berries should, I think it means that the airflow vent here should be closed. So you can have it open or closed, and they want it closed. So they do similar to these actual Tupperware ones. They give you a little bit of guidance on how the airflow vent should be. So we're gonna put a couple of whole ones in here. And then we'll do some cut ones in here. Okay, in addition to that, I want to leave some of them just right in this clamshell that they came in, so that we can see kind of like, this is kind of the control, how they do in there. So we've got that. Now we have a little bit more space, so I am going to add a little bit more to each of these just to even them out. By the way, I really do love this little gadget. It helps you get out all the white part of the berry, which is not as tasty, without wasting as much of the berry, which I love. Okay, I'm also gonna go ahead and taste one of these. Yeah, I'd say that's a pretty good berry. Not the best I've had, but on a scale of, 1 to 10, I'd give it a 7 or 8. Just so we know. Okay, so then we're gonna put these in here. I will say, just from the perspective of like keeping them in the fridge, I would prefer, I like something very stackable like this or like this. I just really like the stackable ones from that perspective, but obviously I would choose whichever one actually keeps my fruit fresh for the longest amount of time. I will also mention that I'm not going to put them in a drawer in the fridge. I'm just going to put them straight in the fridge, so we don't have any kind of humidity adjustment going on from the crisper drawer, which, by the way, I'm telling you, I do not understand how that drawer works, and what you're supposed to have on what setting, that kind of thing. So, all right, we'll put some more of these in here, and let's see, we'll put a few more of these in this one. Then we'll put some more whole ones in here. More whole ones in here. And this one doesn't have very many. Okay, now all I'm gonna do, I won't show this on camera, is I'm just gonna place them in my fridge, and then I'm gonna put a reminder in my phone every morning to come check these, and I'll be sharing that with you as I go, so you can see the progression of how the berries compare to each other as far as how good they're staying. Okay, this is the third day, about 72 hours after we put these in here, and not too much to report with any of them. This is kind of like the control, the normal ones. There is no mold at all, and really they look fine. So I wouldn't expect any of these to be any worse, and they're not. None of the cut up ones look too bad. They look pretty normal. It's a little hard to see in here, but yeah, nothing noteworthy yet. There's quite a bit of condensation on a lot of them. But yep, they all look pretty normal, just a little bit almost shrivelly in a few cases, but still appears to be stuff that we could eat. So that is the day 3 report, and it's really 4 days after purchasing. Everything is still looking good. I'm expecting pretty soon to start seeing that change, as even the ones in the original pack will start to go bad and it'll start to get more exciting. All right, this is day 4. So we're examining these here on day 4. First of all, like the control here still looks fine. Starting to look a little shrivelly there. Like I would not love eating these anymore, is basically what I would say. Although it wouldn't, like there's no mold, it wouldn't scare me. Now this is the one in here. They look okay. The whole ones, you know, look about the same, I would say, as the ones. I'm gonna taste one of these. You can see how it's a little bit dark. It tastes okay. Okay, now let's see here. The ones in the jar, still looking fine. I'm gonna try to wipe down the condensation. Because it was advised to do that. So, and it'll just be easier to see. So I'm gonna go ahead and try to wipe down as much as I can. Here, just doing that. So you can kind of see a little bit better. They're still looking pretty good. Oh, yes, okay. There is a spot, I don't know if you can see it. I'm gonna actually pull this berry out so that you can see what I'm talking about. So it's not looking fantastic. I thought at first that could be mold. I don't think that it is, but it is starting to not look fantastic for the mason jar. And then this is the mason jar where they're cut up. I'm gonna kind of let you see. Looks okay, but see how it's getting a little bit dark, so still not fantastic. Tasted it. It's okay. It's not terrible. Okay, let's look at these in this thing. I'm kind of afraid to, like, I don't know if opening it is gonna cause it any harm. They still look okay. I would say, yeah, no worse than anything else. Tasted one. Pretty good. Then here is the Tupperware whole, still looking okay. So far, I don't think any of the methods are standing out as being vastly superior to any others. So far, if I had to call it, I would say doesn't matter. These are still looking fine. I don't notice anything about them. And I will open this one to kind of let you see in there. If anything, maybe, I don't know, could these be the best? I'm gonna try one. Pretty good. So I would say, yeah. Day 4, not much to report. None of them are quite as perfect as when we put them in. They've all degraded maybe slightly. Still edible, so not too interesting yet. This is day 5. Looking at the strawberries, I'm starting with the ones in here. These look pretty good. I wouldn't say there's very much change in the last 24 hours. In here. These have not changed very much, nor have these. Like, there's really just not a whole lot to report on any of these. Whoops. I knocked some of them off. Well, okay. And I'm not going to open the green bags because I can see they're looking the same. Let me grab the controls. Okay, I think someone may have thrown away my control. Unfortunately, we'll just be examining these from here on out because I'm 90% sure I neglected to inform my husband that I wanted everything on this tray to stay. So those aren't there anymore, but we'll still be able to compare all the different methods of storage. All right, this is day 6. It's been just over 6 full days, and here they all are. This one in here, I would say that could be mold. It's not super fuzzy, so it's hard to say, but this is getting to the point where I probably would not want to eat these. A little bit mushy. Here's this cut up ones. It's harder to see if there is mold on the cut up ones. However, it doesn't look like cutting them has a great effect on how good they are. This, I would say, looks like mold. Not too fuzzy, but I would probably not want to eat these in here. So this is all happening at the same time. Like, this is the first day that there's ones that I feel like I would not want to eat. Here in the jar, I'm gonna pull them out so you can really see them, since again, first time, it's not looking so good. This one looks okay, but this one that I'm pulling out right now, not looking so good. I would say there's a chance that that is mold. Whoops. I would probably, yeah, not be thrilled about eating these. Yep, there's another spot on there. So they've all gone bad at the same time. They are certainly no better in this green bag. Let me show you the worst looking one. Right there. All right, so officially, my conclusion is cutting them up doesn't make them any worse. So if you want to cut them up, go ahead and do that. And every single method I have tried seems almost the same. In this case, I would say the green bag is about the slightly worse than the others, but the rest are incredibly similar in terms of how fast they go bad. So it probably doesn't matter how you store them. All right, we are about 9 days in, just a few hours shy of being officially 9 days. And we have some exciting things happening. We have several berries that have not made it. Okay, so this one, first of all, it's pretty easy to see in there. That's very moldy. So this is by 9 days, we've got to throw it out. Now what's interesting is for the cut berries, that was one question I had, is does cutting them make them go bad faster? Essentially, I don't think it does. I think there is mold. It's just harder to see it on the berries. Also, they do not smell too good. So they have gone pretty far bad there. Now let's see if any method did any better is what we're trying to look for. All right, this was inside of these. This method is still pretty bad, and maybe I would say slightly better than the than this, but no significant difference. Let's see. Here's the cut ones. Again, I just think it's harder to see mold on them, or perhaps cutting them actually helps. I'm not sure. Okay, let's look at these green bags. Here's what it looks like on the outside. I'm going to try to open it up. Whoops. And let's see if they do any better inside of the green bag. Not really. Nope. We're very moldy right there. So didn't do any better inside the green bag. I'll real quickly show you these, but not much to see there. Okay, those were a no-go. Let's look at the jar and see if the jar did any better on the outside. Before we open it, I'm not seeing obvious mold. Once we open it, yep, there is mold. So, nope, wasn't any better. And then here's the cut jar. Well, the strawberry test is now complete, and were you all as surprised as I was? I was honestly shocked. I expected certain methods. I had a lot of faith, especially in the jar method. I was convinced that they were gonna last 3 weeks, but obviously they didn't. So the conclusion was the method of storage, at least according to my test, doesn't matter one bit. While that's a little bit sad on the one hand, because I would really love to extend the life of my berries further than I typically could, on the other hand, it's good news because it just doesn't matter how you store them. So store them whatever it feels the most convenient for you, whatever fits in your refrigerator the best, you can use that method. Also, I was pleased to learn that it didn't seem to matter whether or not I stored them whole or took the stems off and cut them up before storage. I'm thrilled with that. That way I'll be able to keep them on hand. I'll eat them. They'll be easier to make the kids' lunches when I can go ahead and do that. So my conclusion is that I am just going to have to buy strawberries maybe once or twice a week if I want to keep them on hand all the time. Now, you may be wondering, like I am, why doesn't it matter? Why don't any of these methods work? Why are there people saying that they do? Well, the short answer is I don't know. The longer answer, though, is a few things. One is possibly I did something wrong or I didn't do the method perfectly right. So if you all use a method and you're like, seriously, that should last 2 or 3 weeks, please put it in the comments and let me know. Like, this is where I'm inviting you to tell me that I'm wrong. Tell me I'm doing it wrong and how to do it. And I will absolutely try it again and follow up. And, you know, my biggest thing is were the berries completely dry when I put them in? Because there's a lot of talk about how to keep them dry, and they need to be dry. But they were sitting out for a good solid, I know it was at least 6 hours. And I dried them, like I towel dried them several times throughout. So I do not know how I would have gotten them any drier. Like, I just don't think it's possible. And even if you don't wash them at all, they're not completely like dry to the touch. So I don't think I could have gotten them any drier. But if somebody has some great revelation on how I can do that, let me know. Also, the humidity, I'll just mention I was in Indiana in the winter, so it was relatively dry. And we actually have humidity sensors in our house, and it was not very high humidity at that time. So in the dead of summer, it would be way more humid, and I probably couldn't even get them as dry as I got them this time. So I don't think it was that, but maybe. It could have been that I did the vinegar solution wash, which the internet consensus is that is still fine and will not accelerate their aging. But again, if you have a different experience, let me know. The other reason why I think some people are like, oh, I can keep berries like this for 3 weeks, maybe how fresh they are able to get the berries. So I live in Indiana, which is like dead in the middle of the Midwest, and we do not grow strawberries here really in Indiana. I mean, like some private people do, but it's not a great strawberry growing climate. And so our strawberries have to be shipped from, I don't know, wherever they're shipped from. And so by the time I get to them in the store, they are probably not as fresh as, say, someone who lives in California. So I actually think your geography may make a huge difference. And also, how long have they been at the store? And you might say, well, then why don't you buy the freshest berries? Well, I would if I could, but I don't have any way of knowing what store has the freshest berries at what time. I'm definitely not going to be able to go to 10 stores and then go back to the one that had the one that I thought was the freshest. And also, how do I measure that? Like, I can't just take a gauge to the store and it's going to tell me. There's really not a date on produce and things like that. So that seems like most of us probably don't have the ability to magically get wildly fresh strawberries. I will also mention that if you are like eating these plain, you probably want fresh berries. But if you're using your berries in something, frozen strawberries can be fantastic. So if you're making smoothies, even some sauces and things, frozen berries are picked at the peak of freshness and then immediately frozen, and those can be a great alternative. I will also mention on practical terms that in my experience, strawberries go bad a lot faster than, say, blueberries, grapes, and things like that. So blackberries tend to last a little longer. Raspberries do tend to go bad pretty fast. So you can maybe balance out your strawberries with other types of fruit that last a little longer if you don't want to have to go to the store a couple times a week. Next, I recommend that you go watch my video about the #1 kitchen organization mistake most people make if you want your kitchen to be more efficient.